Cornyn, and now the senator from Missouri, so we'll go to Senator Kennedy.
Let me start over. My mic was off. Thank you all for being here. I listened to all of you with great interest. Professor, do you believe that people respond to incentives?
Thank you, Senator. I do believe that people respond to incentives.
Do you believe that what you allow is what will continue?
I suppose I do.
Okay. I listened to all of you talk about enhancing affirmative disclosure requirements, strengthening the presumption of disclosure. I listened to you talk about consultants. I listened to you talking about the need for a public interest balancing test. But those can be ignored just as easily as every other part of the statute. Why don't you just create personal liability for the person responsible for turning over the documents?
Certainly,
Right.
Senator. There are systems, other jurisdictions around the world that do have, in fact, personal penalties for government officials.
Do you recommend it for us?
I don't think that we're at the point where we necessarily have to take such a step in order to drastically change the incentives that agencies.
Why not? I mean, all administrations stall and restall in turning over documents to the American people, don't they? Does anybody disagree with that? It's not a Democrat thing or a Republican thing. It's an executive branch thing, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I do not disagree with that. It is.
So why don't we hold the people responsible, personally responsible? I'm not saying not afford them due process. You may want to require bad faith with a reasonable, not an impossible definition of bad faith. I mean, if you want to solve this problem, why don't you just create personal liability, Mr. Howell?
I think that's a terrific idea. Right now, the mechanism to have liability is basically an attorney's fees, and those are rarely given out. So the government really is never forced to pony up.
Well, the employees don't care if the government gets hit with attorney's fees, do they?
Correct. And that's why the Department of Justice is willing to tolerate us suing them 100 times, because we all pay for their lawyers.
Look, we can write and rewrite statutes all we want to. But it is clear that people in the government are not responding to Freedom of Information Act requests in bad faith. Sometimes they need more time, but I'm talking about in bad faith. That's clear. And it happens on both sides. So instead of just rewriting new laws and new rules that they're going to ignore, why don't you just hold people personally responsible? What about it, Doctor?
I actually fully agree, and I would point out that there's a mechanism in the FOIA statute currently where if it turns out that there's evidence of an agency or an agency employee intentionally withholding documents without a reasonable basis, a judge could, in issuing that order, make that finding.
And when's the last time that happened?
Almost never.
Yeah, it hasn't happened in the history of ever, has it?
Yeah,
No.
Yeah.
And
that's
until Congress makes it very clear that we're serious about this, we're going to be equal opportunity pit bulls here and say, regardless of who is running the executive branch, you have an affirmative obligation to turn over documents. And if you don't do it, you're going to be personally liable. That's going to work, isn't it?
Well, I would hope so. Of course, as you know, as a former law professor, there are issues with, the executive branch claiming immunity for these employees.
I'm not saying deny them due process.
Right.
I'm not saying an ordinary negligence standard. I am saying that if some person is being an obstructionist and you can prove it, they ought to be held personally liable. We wouldn't have to do it for long.
Senator Whitehouse.
I still had 9 seconds left.
Proceed.
No, I yield my back.
Se-
But I do want to say Professor Whitehouse has some interesting thoughts about enforcing orders that he and I have talked about. So I'm going to listen to him carefully here.
Senator
Well,
Whitehouse.
Senator Kennedy has predicted my line of questioning. I know that we're here to talk about FOIA, but at least in theory, congressional.
You know, I love how Senator Kennedy asks this question. Like, he's the most, I don't know how to put it. Like, he asks this question in a very cool way, you understand? He behaves like a father. He don't just impose things on you. He tries to hear from you before giving his final thoughts. And I think when it comes to this information, you don't withhold information that is supposed to be for the public because you feel you are in the right position to do that. Even if you have immunity, there are certain documents that would need, that let's say the country will need, or to pass, judgment, or maybe that will facilitate their whatever decision they want to do. So even if you are in position to hold that document, you don't just prevent justice from having its way. You need to let them do whatever they want to do with the document, and that's if you believe your hand is clean. So I feel I go with Senator Kennedy on this, you understand, because when you let people keep on doing something, they feel like it's their right. But when there is law that will prevent you from withholding documents, like, you want to bring it out immediately. I think the last video I watched when Senator Kennedy was asking the lady in charge of border control how she's doing, or when he was asking her certain question, she did not withhold anything. She was open-minded. At least everyone there was able to, get a fair idea of how things are being run in the southern border. And I think that is how it's supposed to be. You don't just withhold documents simply because you have the right to do that. Yeah, and also he made a statement. He said, do you believe that what you allow is what will continue? When you allow people to keep on living in a certain way, they'll feel like it's their right. But when someone do something and you kick against it, now the remaining people around will take correction. But when you keep on allowing it, feels like you make them feel like they have superior power or no one can hold them accountable. But when you put everyone on check, when you do something, I will hold you personally accountable. You understand? It's just like in accounting, they said removing the corporate veil, whereby instead of you to hide under an organization, when they remove the corporate veil, you personally that commit that act will go with the consequence. That is it. And I think if they start holding everyone accountable for their decision, the country will be in the perfect place. You understand? This is beautiful. I love this, and I want to see more videos like this. If you have any recommendation, let me know in the comment section. It is the first time visiting the channel, click on the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and remember this.